Hello and welcome. My name is Oscar Marroquin. I'm a public policy analyst here at NALCAB. If you're watching this recording, it means you're looking to get more funds for your local community and do more of the important work that our members do in strengthening Latino communities. Thank you for being an anchor in Latino neighborhoods. We put this presentation together to help support you in your work. We'll be sharing the latest information on earmark guidance today and help you and your organization with next steps as you apply for community project funding through the House or Congressionally Directed Spending through the Senate for fiscal year 2024. Deadlines in the House are in late March and those in the Senate are in early April. So if you wish to apply for this funding, it's very important that you move quickly. And also before we begin, if you need any assistance or clarification on any of the points made in this video, please contact us at policy@nalcab.org. So to begin, what exactly are these requests? At times referred to as earmarks, community project funding and congressionally directed spending requests are a way for your organization to get funding for a local project directly from the federal government by applying with your members of Congress. Unlike the funding we're accustomed to seeing through the agencies who have received federal funding, these requests bypass the agencies and create a line item in the federal budget for your specific project. As a result, to apply for these funds, you do so through your members of Congress. As mentioned in our intro, for community project funding, you apply through your House representative, while for congressionally directed spending, you apply through your senator. Of note about community project funding this year, while 15 project requests are still allowed per representative in the US House, spending for community project funding as a whole has been cut almost in half. So the limited requests in dollars make it all the more important to get applications in as soon as possible to give your project the best chance of receiving funding. Next, let's look at the timeline for these requests. And there's a quick turnaround between the release of the guidance and the due date for members of Congress to submit their requests. So the deadlines listed on the slide are the deadlines for members of Congress to submit their chosen 15 applications to the Appropriations Committee. So this means that you will need to submit your organization's application before these deadlines listed here. It can be expected that most deadlines will be between mid-March and early April. So this provides a general idea of when applications are due, but for the exact deadline, you really need to contact your member of Congress and quickly, given the short time frame. Once your applications are submitted to your members of Congress, they will select a maximum of 15 projects to receive funding and submit them to the Appropriations Committee of their chamber. The requests then wait for the normal appropriations process to complete before funding is distributed once the full fiscal year 2024 budget is passed. So in other words, it will take some time for these funds to be deployed. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're considering these projects. Now for the application process itself. So not all members of Congress choose to participate in this process. So it's vital that you find out if your representatives in Congress are doing so. You can find the phone number of your members of Congress on their website, and then just call the DC office and ask for the staff contact who's handling community project funding applications, if it's a US House office, or congressionally directed spending requests if it's a Senate office. You want to get the name, email, and phone number of the person in their office responsible for these applications. This person will be your main point of contact during the applications process and your most important resource in putting together a successful application. Once you get a hold of the point of contact in your member's office, given the time frame we're operating on, it's important to get some basic information right away. First and foremost, what is the deadline for these applications? Then, how and where can they be submitted? Do you have written application guide that can be used? Are you hosting any informational webinars, office hours, training sessions that I can register for? Is there any other crucial information that is needed before an application is submitted? These are all important questions to ask, but ultimately the two key items to find out in all of this is first, what is the deadline for your office? And second, do you have guidance or a guide for the application? There's some set questions and items that applicants will definitely have to put together and we'll touch on later, but there are also additional questions depending on the appropriations bill the request will be a part of, as we mentioned earlier, and the account your project would fit in within that bill. So that is what we're going to look into right now. As I just mentioned, your application is dependent on the specific account in the relevant appropriations bill for your project. Your members of Congress, their staff can help you determine what account your projects fit under and what the application requirements are. The key takeaway from this is that you need to already know what your project is. You need to talk to the point person in your member of Congress's office and explain your project and see which appropriations accounts it could possibly be funded under. They will help you find the exact account, and as I mentioned, depending on that account, you may have to answer more questions on your application. The point person for these projects will likely provide you with a document listing the questions you need to answer and explaining where and how you submit your completed application. Each office will do this process differently. In the event that the resources provided to you by the office is not a thorough enough guide, use the resources that are linked at the end of this presentation and work closely with the point person in your member's office to craft a successful application. Some other important notes we want to highlight on eligibility. So first, you must be able to spend the project funds in one federal fiscal year. So for FY24, that's between October 2023 and September 2024. So remember, this funding is tied to the annual federal budget process, so that means it's only a one-year funding allocation. Additionally, it's recommended that organizations apply through the member of Congress whose office that represents the area the project is geographically located within. The size of your project, who it's benefiting, and whether or not the representatives and senators representing that geographical area are participating in the earmarks process will help you decide who exactly to apply to, whether it's your representative or one of your senators. Since this process is a way for your members of Congress to directly fund projects in their communities, you're more likely to have success if your organization is located within the district or state your project will impact. However, if the project spans across multiple congressional districts, the best course of action is to identify which representatives are participating in the program and apply through one of those channels. If the project is over a very large geographical area, it may make more sense to apply through the US Senate. Next up in crafting a strong application is ensuring that you are showing community support. So to demonstrate this, it's important to gather letters of support from key stakeholders in the community, such as local policymakers, businesses, as well as other service providers and advocates. Proof of community support can also be shown via examples of similar projects in state planning, resolutions passed, media items, and other items as well. The goal of this is all to demonstrate the need for this project as well as the support of the community and its local stakeholders. Although this is step 4, as long as you know what the project is that you hope to accomplish and get funded, it's okay to begin collecting these items or doing outreach to collect them now, as is a very tight time frame. And on top of that, it may take time for public officials to get these letters of support back to you. Finally, we got to put everything together and complete the application. As we already noted in the specificities of each application, that will be dependent upon which account your project fits under. However, like the community support in the last slide, here are some items you will absolutely need when it's time to construct your application anyways, so perhaps you can get a head start on them now. Each organization will need to include proof of its nonprofit status, general information about the organization, and budget information for the project. A budget breakdown showing how this funding would work and answering other questions like, is the project only funded by this application? Are other funding sources being used? And are any of those funding sources being used federal funding? Furthermore, you'll also need to include an explanation of your project. This is a crucial piece of your application. Here, you get to make your case on your project and about how it's so crucial to the population or area it's serving and addressing their needs and its necessity in receiving federal funding. And of course, as we discussed a moment ago, community support. Last but not least, be sure to review your application and make sure it has everything required and then submit. Hopefully funding will be on its way. Remember, sooner the better, because time is really of the essence. Lastly, we want to provide some specific examples of eligible projects. So we were highlighting some of the eligible projects that would fall under the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development and Related Agencies Appropriations Bill. While there are other accounts, as we mentioned earlier, the one highlighted on this slide is that of the Community Development Fund, Economic Development Initiative projects. Here, all projects must fall under CDBG criteria, which brings up a lot of the work our members already do in the community, specifically in the housing space, via rehabilitation, neighborhood revitalization, and much more. For example, if your community has demonstrated the need to solve an affordable housing shortage, an eligible activity would include the demolition of blighted properties in your community to then construct affordable housing units. In creating your plan, it is also important to remember that these are generally large funding opportunities, ranging from hundreds of thousands of dollars to $1 million or thereabout. Just for some reference over the size of these projects, you can compare the project you may have in mind. Ultimately, this slide is just to show you that there is a huge opportunity at play here. There's money available for your organization to carry out key community development projects, and the opportunities are not limited to the activities we mentioned here. Make sure you see our resources and all that information and contact a member of Congress for more details on how you can get project funding on projects even outside of the ones that we've made an example of here. Ultimately, just want to make it clear that this is a key opportunity within each budget for us to receive funding. So with that, here are the resources I mentioned that will help you with this process. All of the official guidance from the appropriations subcommittees are listed here on this slide, as well as some general resources. Remember that your best and most accurate source of information will be a member of Congress and their office as you work through these applications. So that's it. It's a very quick time frame, but NALCAB is here to assist you every step of the way. And please feel free to reach out to us at policy@nalcab.org for more information, as we mentioned earlier. Check out our newsletter, as we have linked here in the slide, for any further updates on this process or other funding opportunities for FY24, and just in general to stay up to date with key information for you, our members. We hope this video is useful and look forward to helping you apply for this excellent funding opportunity. And remember, this is a very tight window, so it's key to move extremely quickly. So with that, thanks for watching and goodbye.